Here's what nobody tells you about becoming fluent. The people who fail aren't the ones who find it too hard. They're the ones who push too hard. And there's actual brain science that explains why. Think about your brain like a smartphone. You've got this incredible processor that can handle complex calculations, store massive amounts of data, run multiple apps simultaneously. But what happens when you open too many apps at once? Well, the phone heats up, it slows down, and eventually it crashes. That's exactly what cognitive load theory tells us about your brain. See, back in the 1980s, a researcher named John Sweller discovered that our working memory, the part of your brain actively processing new information, has a hard limit. Push past that limit and your brain doesn't just slow down, it begins to shut down. Now, I learned this the hard way when I was studying Japanese. For 6 weeks straight, I was doing about 4 hours a day. New kanji, grammar patterns, listening practice, and speaking drills. I was a machine. Until I wasn't. One day, I looked at the character I'd learned 20 times before and my brain just refused. But here's where it gets interesting. A German psychologist named Hermann Ebbinghaus discovered something bizarre about memory back in 1885. He found that forgetting isn't actually your enemy. It's your secret weapon. Ebbinghaus spent years memorizing nonsense syllables, random combinations like WUG and ZOF, then testing how long he remembered them. What he found changed everything we thought we knew about learning. When you learn something that you let yourself partially forget, then relearn it, that memory becomes stronger than if you'd never forgotten it at all. It's kind of like your brain is a muscle. You don't build muscle by lifting weights 24 hours a day. You build it by lifting, resting, and letting the tissue rebuild stronger. Scientists now know what's happening during that rest period. When you sleep, your brain doesn't shut off. It shifts into construction mode. During deep sleep, your hippocampus literally replays the day's language practice, transferring vocabulary from temporary storage into permanent memory. Brain scans show that people who get proper sleep after studying retain 40% more than those who don't. But sleep is actually just one piece of this puzzle. By the way, if you're finding this fascinating and you want to see exactly how to apply this science to become conversationally fluent, check the link in the description. I break down the exact system that helps people get there in just 200 days. Now, there's this Hungarian psychologist with an unpronounceable name. Now, I'm gonna give it a shot, but I'll probably get it wrong. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi? Anyway, he spent his entire life studying peak performance. For anyone interested, his book is actually on my bookshelf right there, and it's called Flow. He discovered that humans enter a state called flow when the challenge level perfectly matches their skill level. If it's too easy, you just get bored and quit. But if it's too hard, you get anxious and quit. See, the truth is, language learners live and die by this balance. Stephen Krashen calls it the I+1, or input that's just one step beyond your current level. But here's the thing. Most people have no idea what their +1 actually is. They're either coasting with material that's too easy or drowning in material that's impossibly hard. See, there's this chemical in your brain that you've probably heard of by now called dopamine. Everyone thinks dopamine is about pleasure, but that's not entirely right. Dopamine is really about anticipation. And here's the kicker. Dopamine doesn't just respond to rewards. It responds to the prediction of rewards. When you're grinding through grammar drills that feel impossible, when every study session feels like failure, your dopamine system stops firing. Your brain literally stops producing the chemical that makes you want to continue. It's not a character flaw, it's just neurochemistry. But it gets worse. When you're stressed about not making progress, when you're beating yourself up for not studying enough, your brain floods itself with cortisol. Cortisol is your fight or flight hormone. Super useful if you're running from a tiger. Devastating if you're trying to remember the past particle of IR. So what do you do? First, you need to understand that burnout isn't something that happens to weak people. It's something that happens to people who care too much and push too hard without understanding their brain's operating system. So with that said, here's the toolkit that actually works. Start with the minimum daily input rule. On your worst days, when you can't face another flashcard, you still do something. Maybe it's 1 minute of a podcast, maybe it's reading one paragraph. The goal isn't progress, it's to keep the neural pathways warm. Next, try using time blocks, not task blocks. Don't say, I'll learn 50 words today. Say, I'll study 25 minutes. When the timer goes off, you stop, even if you're in the middle of a sentence. This isn't giving up, it's respecting your brain's need for processing time. Track your energy, not just your time. Rate yourself 1 to 10 each day. How energized do you feel? How how motivated. When you see 3 days in a row below 5, that's your early warning system. Time to dial back before you crash. Create intensity cycles. 2 weeks of pushing hard, 1 week of maintenance. During maintenance, you're not learning new material, you're reviewing, watching shows, having conversations. You're letting your brain consolidate without adding more weight to the bar. Try mixing your medicine with sugar. For every hour of structured study, try giving yourself 30 minutes of fun input. YouTube videos, whatever you actually enjoy in your target language. Your dopamine system needs wins, not just work. And here's one that most people actually miss. Schedule recovery activities. A 5-minute walk, 3 minutes of breathing exercises. These aren't breaks from learning, they're part of learning. They lower your cortisol, increase oxygen to the brain, and create the conditions for memory consolidation. But here's the real secret. The people who become fluent aren't the ones who never experience burnout. They're the ones who recognize it, respect it, and respond to it before it destroys their motivation completely. Believe it or not, your brain actually wants to learn languages. We're literally wired for it. The only thing standing between you and fluency isn't talent, it isn't time, it isn't even difficulty. It's understanding how to work with your brain instead of against it. Look, if you're serious about becoming conversationally fluent in a new language, I want to help you do it in 200 days. Not 200 weeks, not 200 months, 200 days. Check the link in the description where I personally guide people through the exact system that makes this possible. It's based on everything we just talked about, plus a lot more brain science that will blow your mind. The choice isn't between pushing hard and taking it easy. The choice is between burning out in 3 weeks or building fluency that lasts a lifetime. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.